Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel Code Room. In today's lesson, we are going to learn how to build a simple C++ program which is going to find the sum of n numbers entered by the user at runtime. I'm using Visual Studio 2019 as my code editor, and also I'm using C++ as my programming language. So to create this project right from the scratch, you need to click on this create a new project link, and as you can see, it brings us to a window where we are going to create the new project by selecting the language, which is C++, and also the platform, which is Windows, and also the project type. In this case, I'm selecting consoles. You can also use this search bar by writing console app. As you can see, this is console app with C++ as the language, Windows as the platform, and console as the project type. Just click or select this template and click on this next button, and you can see it brings us to another window where we are going to configure our project by providing the project name and also the project location. So in my case, I'm going to call it sum of n numbers. Now for the location, let me choose a directory where I'm going to save my project files. So let me go to desktop. Let me choose this BS project. So let me create a new folder. Let me call it sum of n numbers. Just press enter on your keyboard and select folder. Click on this select folder. As you can see, we have provided a name for this project, and also we have provided a location for our project. So just click on this create button, and Visual Studio is creating the project, and it successfully created the project. It brings us to a window where we are going to write all the code related to this program. As you can see, this is the name of our project with the extension sum of n numbers.cpp, which is C++ as the file extension, and this is Solution Explorer. And if you click on this source files, as you can see, this is the files, which is sum of n numbers.cpp, and this is include iostream. So let me explain what does this line of statement mean to this project. So as you can see, this include is a statement which allow you to reference code located in other files. Sometimes you may see a file name surrounded by an angle brackets, and in this case, this is my angle brackets, and this is the file name which is being surrounded by this angle brackets, and the file name here is iostream, which stands for input output stream. It is one of the C++ header files. So it's mostly seen in any C++ project because it contains some objects such as console in and console output. So This angle bracket are used to reference the C++ standard libraries. So that is why I'm now using this angle bracket. And this is my main function, which is int main, which serves as the main function to this program. And this is where the program execution begins and ends here. So as you know, in any program, you need to declare a data type and also the variables which you are going to use in your project. So in my case, I'm going to use integer as my data type. Let me declare the variables. So int as my data type, now followed by my variables and num sum. So these are my variables which I'm going to use in this project. So let me initialize this sum variables. So sum equals to 0. So at first, my sum variables is going to hold no value. That's what I mean here. So let me start writing code which will display a message to the user at runtime. So cout so this line of code will ask or will get printed at program runtime, asking the user to input how many numbers you want. That means it is asking the user to input the value of numbers he wants the program to add at the end of this program. So it's like I'm getting one error. As you can see, this is one error, and it says identifier cout is undefined. So that means this cout is not defined in our program. So let me get rid of this message by writing a statement using namespace std. As you can see, the error has gone and it says no issue found, meaning that there is no error in line of code. So what does this statement mean is that it is a line which tells the compiler to expect some stuff from the C++ standard library to be used in these files. So without this line, each keyword from the library will have to be preceded by std column. That means if I didn't use this using namespace, so whenever I wanted to use this cout or cin or end line, so I have to use std column. As you can see, the arrow has gone now. So because I'm going to use a lot of this object, so I don't need to use this std column each time. So just I can decide to write this line of statement using namespace std, which is the standard library. So now I'm going to use another line of code, which is cin in this case, which is console input from data, that is accept input from keyboard entered by the user. So let me enter n. So this n is going to store the value of numbers that the user will input later on. So now let me use cout again. So it says enter any n, enter any n numbers. So this line of code will get printed also during the program runtime to the user, which will ask the user to enter any n numbers, that is any numbers that the user had enters their value before. So enter those numbers now. So I'm going to use for loop to do this job. You can also use the while loop, or you can use the user defined, but I'm going to use for loop to this job. So initially 0 get initialized to I, and this will check if the value of I is less than the value of this n entered by the user, and the value of I is going to be incremented each time or every time a user enters a number. So I'm going to use a line of code with a variable which is none, which is going to receive any number entered by the user during the program runtime. So now let me use another line of statement, sum equals to sum plus none. This line of statement means that initially this sum variables was initialized as 0. So now whenever the user enters a number, say like maybe 5, so this line of statement is going to read as sum is equals to 0, which is this one, plus that 5, which is the first number entered by the user, which is also the same as saying sum equals to 0 plus 5, which is also the same thing as saying sum is equals to 5. So now outside the loop, I'm going to write a line of code which will add all the numbers, which will print all the added numbers entered by the user at the program runtime. So cout the summation of this n numbers is the sum. So that means this line of code will be printed, which will show the addition of all the numbers entered by the user at runtime. So that means this will give us the cumulative numbers, or the addition of all the numbers that the user wants the program to add up. So now let me explain this program further so that you can understand it better. As you can see, as I told you, this is one of the statement which is telling us to use some codes in another files, while this angle bracket is telling us to reference some code from the C++ standard library, and you may find a file name inside the angle bracket, and our file name here is this IO string, and this using namespace std is a command which will tell the compiler that we are going to use some stuff from the C++ standard library, and this int main, which serve as the main function to this program, this is where the program execution begins and ends. So, and this int is my data type, and these are my variables which I use in this program, and this cout, which serve as the IOStream object, is used to print or to display a message to the user during the program runtime, and this cin is also IOStream object which receives an input from the keyboard entered by the user. So, and this line of code will ask the user to input the value of n. In this case, not these numbers that the user wants to add, but the value of numbers. Maybe if you want to enter maybe 10 numbers, so in this case, you are just allowed to enter the digit as 10, not 10 numbers, while this line of code will now allow the user to input any 10 numbers that the user wants the program to add them of. So now this is our for loop. This is where the main activities goes on. As you can see, inside this for loop, 0 get initialized to I and checks the condition, that is whether the value of this I is less than the value of this n or not. So condition evaluate to be true, therefore the program flow goes inside the loop. Now if this condition evaluate true, so the program flow goes inside this loop. As you can see, this is inside the loop, and receive a number from the user or entered by the user in a variable, which in this case I call it num. So now this sum plus num get initialized to this sum every time after receiving the number. Therefore, at post execution of this for loop, suppose a user enters a number. Suppose a user enters a number as 10. So this variable is going to store that number as 10. Therefore, 0 plus 10, 0 plus 10 get initialized to these sum variables, which is the same thing as saying sum is equals to 10. So now program goes to the update part, which is this, and increment the value of I again and check the condition. If the value of I is less than the value of n again, so the condition evaluates to be true for the second time, and the program flow goes inside the loop, execute the two statement that it receives a number, maybe if a user enters another number, maybe like 30, and initialize this 10 plus 30 to these sum variables, which is going to be 10 plus 30, which is going to be 40. So now this sum variable is now equals to 40 instead of 10. So in similar way, this process the operation. So whenever the condition is evaluated to be false, then the loop execute terminates. So after exiting from the loop, after we have not totally exited from this loop, so what will happen? We will have a sum variables that hold the summation value of all the n numbers entered by the user, which is this one. So, and this one will give us the sum of all the numbers entered by the user at the program runtime. Therefore, it simply prints the value as the output. So this how the program works, and as you can see, it telling us that no issues found, meaning that there is no error in each line of our code. So now let me run the program. You can simply start running this program, but before we run the program, we have to build this program by clicking on this build menu, then select build solution. So now the Visual Studio is going to build this program. As you can see, it says build 1 succeed, 0 fails, 0 up to date, 0 skip, meaning that the program was being built successfully by the Visual Studio since there is no error. So now to run this code or to run this program, you have to click on this debug, then go to start debugging, start without debugging. You can press Ctrl F5. As you can see, the program runs successfully, and mind you, this program was not run from the Visual Studio, but it's successfully run from the command line. The Visual Studio only built the program, and now we run the program from the command line such as command prompt. And as you can see, the program runs successfully, and it says how many numbers you want to enter. So the program is asking the user to input the value of numbers he wants the program to add at the end of this program. So let me, as a user, let me enter like 6 as the value of numbers. So just press enter on your computer keyboard, and it says enter any 6 numbers. Since I says I want to enter 6 as my number value, so now enter any 6 numbers. So the program is now ready to accept this input from user. So let me input 10 as my first number. So as you can see, this 10 is now going to be saved in the number variables as I explained before. And now the program is going to, or the program plus goes to the update path and increments the value of I and check the condition again. So now let me enter another number like 20 as my second number. Press enter. So the program again goes to the update path and checks is the value of I less than the value of n. So the program now evaluates to be true and it goes to the update path and increments the value of I. So now let me enter the third number and so on. Let me enter the fourth number, fifth number. Let me enter the sixth number. As you can see, this is the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and this is the sixth number. So just press enter on your keyboard. As you can see, it says the summation of these 6 numbers is 210. Let's see, 10 plus 20, which is 30, 30 plus 30, which is 60, 60 plus 40, which is 100, 100 plus 50, which is 150, 150 plus 60, which is 210. So that means our program works correctly. But let me correct something. As you can see, this line, it says enter any 6 numbers. As you can see, there is no space between these 6 and numbers. So, and also, I don't want to see this line of messages at the program runtime. So, I'm going to use a line of statement which will get rid of this line of messages. So, as you can see, let me give a space between n and the numbers, and also let me write the line of code which will get rid of that unwanted messaging seen during the program runtime. So I'm going to force it, and let me save all. So alternatively, you can also click on this local window debugger to run your program. Instead of going to build, post, and then going to debug for the second time, just click on local window debugger, and as you can see, it successfully run the program. So it says how many numbers you want to enter. In this case, let me enter like 4 as my number value. Just press enter, and as you can see, the issue has now been rectified. So now there is a space between the number and these numbers. So it says enter any 4 enter any four numbers. So let me enter like 100 as my first number, 200 as my second number, 300 as my third number, 400 as my fourth number, and it says the summation of these four numbers is 1000. So let's see, 100 plus 200, which is 300, 300 plus 300, which is 600, 600 plus 400, which is 1000. So our programs works correctly. This comes to the end of our today's lesson, and if you really find this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to this channel, Code Room, please don't forget to click on the red subscribe button for more amazing videos like this one. That means whenever I upload a new video, it's going to be received by you. So thank you once again, till I see you in my next video.